Hello, and a very warm welcome to Titans of the Road, the podcast where we explore the greatest rivalries in the automotive world. Thank you for joining us. In today's series, we're diving into a confrontation that has lasted for nearly a century, a battle of innovation, marketing, and pure will between two of the world's most iconic brands, BMW versus Mercedes. These aren't just car manufacturers, they are cultural symbols. For many, they represent the pinnacle of success and engineering. We'll journey back to their origins, exploring how one started with aircraft engines and the other helped invent the automobile itself. We'll uncover their complex and controversial histories, including their activities during World War II, and reveal how they rose from the ashes to become global powerhouses. Who won the marketing wars? How did one brand become synonymous with luxurious comfort, while the other claimed the title of the ultimate driving machine? From James Bond's famous cars and groundbreaking short films to secret celebrity endorsements and hilarious advertising takedowns, we're covering it all. So buckle up. The story of BMW and Mercedes is about more than just cars. It's about a relentless fight for victory. Let's get started. Chapter 1: The Birth of Giants. To understand this rivalry, we must first look at their origins. Mercedes-Benz, as a brand, was officially born in 1926, meaning its centenary is just around the corner. But its roots go much deeper. It was formed through the merger of two fierce competitors, Daimler and Benz, companies that were true pioneers of the auto industry. The name Gottlieb Daimler is legendary. He was one of the visionaries who invented the automobile and developed several types of internal combustion engines. His most celebrated creation was a two-seater sports car he named Mercedes in honor of his daughter. The iconic three-pointed star logo also came from Daimler. His company produced engines for land, air, and sea, and the star symbolizes mastery over these three domains. The laurel wreath that once surrounded it was a legacy from Benz, later simplified into the circle we know today. So why did these rivals decide to merge? The aftermath of World War I was devastating for Germany. The economy collapsed, the nation was burdened with huge reparations payments, and consumers had no money. At the same time, an American giant, Ford, was entering the German market. To survive, Daimler and Benz united. At the helm of this new company, as chief designer, was a man named Ferdinand Porsche.
Chapter 2: The Porsche Connection and the Rise of BMW. Yes, that's the very same Ferdinand Porsche who would later create the legendary sports car company bearing his name. His first creation for the newly formed Mercedes-Benz was a model with a six-cylinder engine, which became the foundation for the S-Class series that continues to this day. Porsche also designed military equipment during the First World War and created racing cars for Mercedes. Amazingly, he accomplished all of this without a formal education. He was even courted by the Soviet Union in the 1930s to build tanks and aircraft, an offer he refused. Eventually, he left to start his own design firm, which would also famously build tanks during the next war, including the self-propelled gun named Ferdinand in his honor. He became one of Hitler's favorite engineers. Meanwhile, BMW's story began in a completely different domain. Initially, the company had nothing to do with cars. It built aircraft engines. This heritage is reflected in its logo, which many believe represents a spinning propeller against the blue and white colors of Bavaria, where the company was founded in 1916. However, after World War I, the Treaty of Versailles banned Germany from producing aircraft. To stay afloat, BMW pivoted to making agricultural equipment and train brakes.
Chapter 3: From Motorcycles to Cars. Things gradually improved for BMW, and in 1923, they released their first motorcycle. It wasn't a massive success and was discontinued a few years later. But their foray into automobiles proved more promising. In the late 1920s, BMW acquired a car factory and a license to produce a quirky little car called the Dixie. The Dixie was originally a British design, but its simplicity and low price made it incredibly popular across Europe. This humble, non-premium vehicle was what truly helped BMW get its footing in the market and begin to grow. A major turning point came just before World War II, when the industrial conglomerate Siemens sold its entire machine-building division to BMW. This acquisition included all design and scientific documentation, test sites, and laboratories. Armed with these new resources, BMW returned to its roots, building factories for aircraft and rocket engines while still developing cars. By the mid-1930s, they introduced the BMW 328 Roadster, a sports car that quickly became a market leader and cemented BMW's reputation in the automotive world. By this time, BMW had become one of Europe's largest industrial concerns.
Chapter 4. The Darkest Chapter. Wartime Involvement. As the 1940s began, both Mercedes and BMW were powerful leaders in the auto industry, associated with luxury and technology. But they emphasized different things. Mercedes had always promoted the idea of reliability and safety. They were the first to invent the anti-lock braking system and the first in Europe to make airbags a standard feature. Their other focus was prestige. In the 1940s, Mercedes cars were favorites among politicians, especially within the Nazi regime in Germany and fascist Italy. Hitler himself had an impressive collection, including a custom-built armored Mercedes, known as the Grosser Mercedes. It was one of the first armored cars ever produced, and, at the time, the most expensive car in the world. This massive vehicle, weighing nearly 4.5 tons, fit perfectly with the Nazi cult of gigantism. During the war, Mercedes supplied the German military with vehicle and aircraft parts, and even components for submarines. The company was also accused, and confirmed, of using forced labor from prisoners of war. It's estimated that up to 75,000 people worked under duress in their factories. Despite this, after the war, Mercedes faced no severe sanctions and was allowed to continue its growth.
Chapter 5. BMW's Controversial Past. BMW also has a dark fascist past. At the time, the company was run by Günter Quandt, a major industrialist who, along with his son, maintained a very warm relationship with Hitler. In 1937, Quandt was appointed leader of the war economy, essentially the minister of military economics. He was a member of the Nazi Party from 1933 and a close friend of Hitler. It's said that the Quandt family didn't share the Nazi ideology and were just manipulating the regime for financial gain. But their collaboration was deep. Hitler gave Quandt control of numerous enterprises, many of which had been seized from Jewish owners. BMW produced aircraft engines and vehicles for the army. Reports from that era describe horrific working conditions in Quandt's factories. At one facility producing batteries for tanks and submarines, workers were not given protective clothing, and many died from lead poisoning within months. Some sources claim up to 80 workers died each month, and there were even reports of executions. The company used forced labor from civilians deported from Eastern Europe. Like Mercedes, BMW managed to get off relatively lightly after the war. They paid some compensation, issued public apologies, and the matter was largely closed. This lenient treatment of major industrial players was seen as a necessary evil to rebuild the German economy and avoid repeating the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles, which many believed led to the rise of Nazism in the first place.
Chapter 6. Post-War Fortunes. A Tale of Two Recoveries. After the war, the fates of the two companies diverged dramatically. Mercedes was in a better position and recovered more quickly. Their main task was to restart civilian car production. Lacking resources for new designs, they initially released a sedan based on pre-war models. They soon updated it, increased the engine size, and crucially, invented a model with a diesel engine. They began to experiment actively. Within a few years, as soon as their position stabilized, they returned to their roots, producing premium and luxury cars. The problem was that older luxury models were outdated, and only the elite could afford the new 300 series in a cash-strapped post-war Europe. There was a demand for a new kind of Mercedes, inexpensive, safe, and easy to maintain. In the 1950s, the company launched the Model 180. It was a massive success. For 10 years, the model was continuously improved and exported worldwide. The 1960s saw an automotive revolution, and the foundation Mercedes laid in these 2 decades secured its future. Chapter 7. BMW's Fight for Survival. BMW's post-war story, however, was one of near-total collapse. Their aircraft past was over, and most of their factories had been destroyed during the war. On the few remaining plants in West Germany, they were forbidden by the Allies from building cars or planes. The company had almost no chance of survival. Yet, they found a way. To scrape together resources and simply avoid disappearing, they began producing pots, pans, and bicycles. Yes, you could find BMW products in German kitchens. By the late 1940s, the company returned to making low-powered motorcycles, as large engines were still forbidden. The LR24 motorcycle, launched in 1948, became BMW's first post-war vehicle. It was cheap, and in the post-war economy, price was everything. Demand grew, and so did BMW's capabilities. In 1952, they finally resumed car production with a luxury sedan, the 501. The logic was that their limited production capacity was best suited for high-margin luxury cars. However, the 501 didn't sell well because it was too expensive. At the same time, demand for motorcycles in Germany plummeted. By the end of the 1950s, BMW was on the verge of being acquired by its direct competitor, Mercedes.
Chapter 8. The car that saved BMW. The acquisition by Mercedes was already being discussed at the board level. What saved BMW was a last-minute investment from Herbert and Harald Quandt, who remain major shareholders to this day. They poured a huge amount of their personal fortune into the company, giving it one last chance. That chance came in the form of the BMW 700. This small, unassuming car was a runaway success and brought in enough money to save the company from bankruptcy. This success allowed BMW to launch a new line of models called the New Class. This was a pivotal moment. Realizing they couldn't compete with Mercedes in the high luxury segment, BMW made a strategic decision to focus on sporty sedans. This marked a beginning of a new identity for BMW. Instead of being a car for a passenger in the back seat, BMW would be a car for the driver. This defined their philosophy for decades to come. Mercedes positioned itself as the car for the successful man being chauffeured, while BMW became the car for those who sought thrill, speed, and the joy of being behind the wheel.
Chapter 9. The Battle of Slogans. This difference in philosophy was perfectly captured in their slogans. For a long time, Mercedes used "the best or nothing," a motto that originated with Gottlieb Daimler himself. It was a promise to produce the absolute best cars in the world, excelling in every aspect, from safety to design. Another famous slogan was, "The star always shines from above," a clever reference to their logo and their leadership position in the industry. everything was about prestige and uniqueness. BMW's slogans, in contrast, were all about speed and emotion. One of their most famous and enduring slogans is sheer driving pleasure, or in its original German, Freude am Fahren. In the 1970s, American marketers simplified this even further into what is now considered one of the greatest advertising slogans of all time, the ultimate driving machine. It's simple, powerful, and perfectly clear. It's a car for driving, not for being driven in. This slogan was aimed squarely at the baby boomer generation, who saw owning the ultimate driving machine as proof of their success and independence. The slogan worked for nearly 30 years before the company, in a questionable marketing move, changed it to "Joy is BMW." The new slogan lacked the punch of the original, and thankfully, they eventually returned to sheer driving pleasure. The lesson? If it isn't broken, don't fix it. Chapter 10: Celebrity Power and Pop Culture. Both brands have masterfully used celebrities to enhance their image. In marketing, this is done through a brand ambassador, a person who represents the brand to their audience. Over the years, Mercedes ambassadors have included legends like Sophia Loren, Bruce Lee, Michael Jackson, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. An interesting story involves Steve Jobs. A legend persisted that the Apple founder exclusively drove a silver Mercedes SL55 AMG, always without license plates. The truth was that California law gives you 6 months to put plates on a new car. Jobs had a deal with the Mercedes dealership to lease a new SL55 every 6 months, turning in the old one for a brand new one. For Jobs, it meant a new car every 6 months and no plates. For Mercedes, it meant their car was the choice of one of the world's greatest innovators. Another famous Mercedes owner was Vladimir Vysotsky, the legendary Soviet poet and actor. In the Soviet Union, owning a Western car was almost unheard of. The story goes that there were only 2 privately owned Mercedes in Moscow, one belonging to Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev and the other to Vysotsky. And of course, the Pope himself travels in a Mercedes. The famous Pope-mobile, a custom-built, bulletproof glass vehicle, has been a Mercedes for decades. Chapter 11: BMW on the big screen. While Mercedes has had its share of stars, BMW has no official single face for its brand, preferring to let the car be the star. And nowhere is this clearer than in cinema. When you think of BMW and movies, one name comes to mind: Bond, James Bond. In the 1990s, the producers of the Bond films signed a product placement deal with BMW. The first car to feature was the Z3 in GoldenEye. Later, in Tomorrow Never Dies, Bond drove a BMW 750, a car equipped with rockets, tire-shredding spikes, and the ability to be driven via a mobile phone. This was a clear attempt to challenge Mercedes in the luxury sedan segment. One of the last and arguably most beautiful BMWs in the Bond franchise was the Z8 from The World Is Not Enough. It was a stunning car, reportedly faster than a Ferrari 360 Modena. In Russia, however, BMW became iconic for a different reason, thanks to the cult film Boomer. The film cemented BMW's image as a car associated with the tough, assertive figures of the 1990s, an image the brand has since worked hard to evolve. The name Boomer itself is a Russian adaptation of the English slang Beamer, which was a simplified way of saying BMW. Chapter 12: The Higher, a Marketing Revolution. In the early 2000s, BMW did something completely revolutionary. They created a series of short films called The Higher. This wasn't just an ad campaign. It was a full-fledged film series across 3 seasons, costing $17 million to produce. It was a massive risk, an untested and unconventional idea, but the risk paid off spectacularly. The series became incredibly popular, and BMW became the first company ever to win a titanium lion at the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity for it. The premise was simple. Each short film featured a mysterious driver for hire, played by Clive Owen, who has to complete a dangerous assignment. The films were directed by A-list directors like Guy Ritchie and featured stars like Madonna. The car, of course, was always the hero, pushed to its limits in incredible chase scenes and stunts. Crucially, BMW released these films online 4 years before YouTube even existed. Market research had shown them that internet video could potentially have a greater reach than a Super Bowl ad, with the added benefit of unlimited runtime. People waited for hours for the films to download on slow internet connections, a testament to how compelling the content was. The success was so immense that it inspired other brands and even a feature film, The Transporter, which director Luc Besson admitted was inspired by The Hire. Chapter 13. Racing for Dominance. Formula One. To truly prove you make performance cars, there's one place you have to go: Formula One, the pinnacle of motorsport. Both Mercedes and BMW have had complex relationships with F1. Mercedes entered the modern era by buying the championship-winning Braun GP team. After a few years of development, they began to dominate the sport with the introduction of turbo-hybrid engines. With star drivers, the Mercedes-AMG Petronas team has since won numerous championships, cementing their reputation for cutting-edge engineering. This move was a deliberate strategy to capture a younger audience. Historically, Mercedes owners were older, but with the rise of young dot-com millionaires, the brand needed to shed its image as just a car for passengers and appeal to those who wanted to drive. BMW's history in F1 is more complicated. They've been involved since the 1950s, but have entered and exited the sport multiple times. While their road cars are legendary for performance, they've never achieved sustained success in Formula One. After the 2008 financial crisis, they withdrew and have since refused to return. The company claims this is a marketing decision, arguing that F1 doesn't align with their current brand direction. But many observers feel it's either because they lack the resources to compete at the top level or because they don't want to risk finishing at the back of the grid. It's a contentious point for fans who believe a top performance brand has an obligation to compete in the ultimate racing series.
Chapter 14. Scandals and Controversies. For all their success, both brands have been at the center of major scandals. The most infamous is Dieselgate. In 2015, Volkswagen was caught using defeat devices, special software that could detect when a car was being tested and change the engine's performance to cheat on emissions tests. The scandal led to investigations across the entire industry. Mercedes was accused of exceeding emissions limits in the US by up to 65 times and was found to have similar software on nearly 1 million vehicles. While they denied deliberate wrongdoing, they paid a $1.5 billion fine to US authorities to settle the matter and avoid further damage to their reputation. BMW was also caught up in the scandal, but was found to have installed the software accidentally, according to government investigations. Still, they received a fine of nearly $11 million, a trivial amount for a company of its size. But the controversies didn't end there. In 2014, it was revealed that BMW, Mercedes, and Volkswagen had funded a study to test the toxicity of diesel fumes on monkeys. The animals were confined in chambers and forced to inhale exhaust while watching cartoons to keep them calm. The companies even went further, conducting tests on human volunteers. The most shocking part?
The study yielded no conclusive results, making the entire grotesque experiment pointless. Chapter 15. The Ad Wars, a rivalry with a smile. Despite the fierce competition, the rivalry between BMW and Mercedes is often carried out with a great sense of humor. They love to troll each other in their advertising. One classic example was a BMW poster for their X5 SUV. It depicted the BMW, stylized with a leopard print, chasing down its main competitor, the Mercedes ML. BMW followed this up with another ad showing a Mercedes car carrier truck with the caption, "A Mercedes can also bring driving pleasure." The trolling goes both ways. Audi, another German rival, once put up a billboard for its A4 with the tagline, "Your move, BMW." BMW responded by placing a larger billboard right next to it, featuring their M3 with a simple, devastating reply, "Checkmate." Perhaps the most famous example of this respectful rivalry came when Dieter Zetsche, the long-serving CEO of Mercedes, retired. BMW released a video showing Zetsche on his last day at work. He says his goodbyes, is chauffeured home in his company Mercedes, and walks into his garage. The moment the door closes, the text on screen reads, "Free at last." Then the garage door opens again, and he drives out in a brand new BMW i8. The video ends with a sincere message. "Thank you, Dieter Zetsche, for so many years of inspiring competition." It perfectly summarizes their relationship. Ruthless competition, but always with mutual respect.
Conclusion. So, who is the winner in this 100-year war? The truth is, there isn't one. The real winner is us, the consumer. This relentless competition has forced BMW and Mercedes to constantly innovate, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in a car. Mercedes gave us safety features that are now standard everywhere, while BMW defined what a sports sedan should feel like. They've given us decades of incredible engineering, iconic designs, and a masterclass in brand building. Their battle continues to evolve. Mercedes is now targeting a younger demographic, shifting its marketing to be more emotional and energetic, while BMW is increasingly focusing on sustainability and electric technology. They are different, yet they are driven by the same goal: to be the best. Theirs is a story of two titans forever locked in a dance of competition and respect, a dance that has shaped the entire automotive landscape. Thank you for listening to Titans of the Road. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the fascinating history of BMW and Mercedes. Stay with us for our next series, where we'll explore another legendary rivalry. Until then, drive safe.